First semester I had a yeah, I know. We're coming to related classes for and she was from
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Psychology Colloquium series. Now, before we start, I just have two questions. One is everybody okay with recording? Yeah, is anybody not okay with it? Okay, good. Two, is everybody okay with photos? If you're not, just please raise your hand. Everybody's okay? Cool. All right, so again, welcome to the Psychology Colloquium series. It's been a while since our department has been doing colloquiums, and I'm thrilled that we can do it again and bring psychology researchers and their work to the greater UNBC community. One of the greatest things about the field of psychology is its applicability to our daily lives, to many types of practical fields of work, as well as many academic disciplines. So we hope with this series we're able to attract people from all walks of life, whether they're students, faculty, or otherwise. The speaker for today's event is my friend Sonia, and she completed her Ph.D. at McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario, and has been an assistant professor here at UNBC since 2024. And she has a wide array of academic interests, including developmental, cross-cultural, personality psychology, and with a particular interest in shyness, parenting, and cross-cultural differences. And this field seems to be fruitful for her, as she's very well published on these topics, so she's quite an expert. Without further ado, please welcome Sonia.
It's a great honor to be the first presenters for the Colloquium. It's the hardest word for me. I practice a lot, but it doesn't work. So today I'm gonna give you a talk about my studies related to cross-cultural studies and personality studies. So there's a person called Alan Shaw. You know that the person, Alan? She has in her show, she invited some children in her show. And for some of you, Annie or Kaylin, you probably still remember the videos when I did my interview here, the presentation. But I want to show you guys. So I will show you two different videos. And what I want you to try to find some behaviors that you think are different, like in the two different videos, okay? Hopefully it works. It doesn't work. It works.
Oh, that's so sweet of you to say. So it's 2018 now, isn't it? Yeah. I haven't seen you since 2017. What's changed? What's happened? Is that two teeth are gone? One's coming in. Oh, boy. Two are gone. Yep. It looks like a perfect place to put a straw. You can just put a straw in there and suck on like a shake or something. Okay.
Put it in there.
Yeah. So what?
My birthday.
Oh, really? How was that?
It was good. We went to the snow.
We went to the snow.
Yeah.
And did
Okay, so that's the first one. Let's see the second one. Why it doesn't work this time? Weird.
You can hear it, please.
I hate the technical issues. When I'm teaching, it's the hardest time for me. I'm sweat. Yeah.
The volume is up all the way.
Yeah, it should be work. I don't know. I see.
Yes, hi, Zoni and Yoni.
I don't know what's going on here.
You flew here, you were on an airplane, right? Yeah, and you want to be a flight attendant, is that right? I thought you wanted to be a flight attendant. No? Okay, well, you don't have to be. I just thought you were.
Okay, so the two videos are shown here. Can you find any differences, any behavioral differences? Like compare the two Asian girls and the white girl. You remember the two Asian girls, they sit still, they put their hands on the legs. It's how we ask when we are in the kindergarten. We have to sit like this. Put your hands on your legs. When you want to answer the question, you should hand up like on the desk. Exactly. So it's specific social rules in some behaviors. Actually, some people may say, okay, there are behavioral differences. One is more assertive, one is more quiet due to the language differences. For sure, yes, because the Asian girls, they need a translator, and the white girl is her native language, right? It probably because of the language. It can also due to their personality differences, right? What the two Asian girls are more shy, and the white girls, she's more extroverted. Can also due to the cultural differences, right? Expectation for the behaviors are different in different culture backgrounds, right? So we noticed that the white girl, she's more active, express, and she can even articulate a conversation, right? And this is my birthday, right? Blah, blah, blah. And the two Asian girls are more likely is just reserved and introverted and answer the question instead of, lead the conversation. Again, those behavioral differences are due to different reasons, and probably because of the personality differences, cultural differences, and also like language differences. So in my study, I focus on two aspects of the developmental psychology. One is personality, one is cultural differences. So I combine them together. So for personality, Chris probably the expert of this field, and Jen. So personality is enduring and unique patterns of thought, feelings, and behavior that characterize an individual. And the other aspect across culture differences on personality. So many empirical studies from previous cross-cultural investigations into personality showing that people from different places in the world, they have very similar types of personality. We know big five, right? OCEAN, and they have very similar personalities, similar dimensions, but they still showing some cultural differences on those personalities. So in my study, again, I want to answer whether, when we combine the personality and cultural differences, any new findings, some interesting findings on the cross-cultural aspects of personality, which I focus on shyness. So in today's study, I'm going to give you some background information about personality shyness and also cultural differences on shyness. Then I will show you 4 studies we did before, and showing the result of cultural differences on shyness, sociability, or related constructs. And then I will also mention some recent current projects I'm doing right now after I joined UMBC here. So when we talk about shyness is a typical predictive of psychophysiology, right? So extremely shy or extremely shyness can be a component of social anxiety. And, that can lead to like social anxiety disorder and consider a form of psychophysiology. So shyness is a personality trait characterized by high levels of awareness and fear in new social situations, and or perceived fear and discomfort of social appraisal. Studies of shyness has been conducted in Western cultures for over 4 decades. It's a long history of studying shyness. And given that there are still many people living in the non-Westernized cultural backgrounds, so more and more cross-cultural studies pay attention to the people living in other parts, not Western cultural backgrounds. So in my research, I look at the cultural differences focusing on comparing Chinese and Canadian groups. One represent the Eastern Asian or Asian groups. One represent the Western groups, North American groups. So although we know shy or shyness is a universal trait across cultures, all the cultures have shy, and we have the word of shy, but different socio-cultural mechanism underlying different phenomenon and development outcomes of shyness in different outcomes in different cultures. So for example, the previous findings in the Western cultures showing that shyness always related to some negative outcomes in the North American or Western cultures. For example, shyness will relate to internalizing problems, right? Higher level of negative emotionality, and or even, you know, like anxiety disorders. Also relate to lower level of self-regulation and lower peer acceptance. However, the findings about shy and related outcomes are inconsistent in Chinese culture. In the previous findings, like in before 1980s, most of the researcher claims that shy is related to positive outcomes in Chinese children or adolescents, which means that if you're shy, have higher peer acceptance, you have better academic performance. But recent years, probably because of the, you know, the culture changes, Chinese are open their door and more westernized values coming to the China. More and more researchers find that shy Chinese children or adolescents or even adults, they are related to some negative outcomes like the Western findings. So it's very similar right now. So why there are different outcomes that have been found in different cultures, the interaction process played a role, right? In linking the social values or cultural values and expression and development of shyness. So for example, in the Western cultures, assertiveness, competitiveness, or autonomy are highly encouraged. But in the Eastern cultures, restraint, obedience, conformity, and collective welfare are encouraged or highly valued. So those differences can make people respond or express differently when they feel withdrawn or they're shy. So shy people are more likely to receive positive feedback in Asian cultures compared to the Western cultures, right? So again, from previous cross-culture comparison studies, they always find that the people in the Western culture showing lower level of shyness compared to the people from the Eastern cultures. And when we compare the Canadian and Chinese, it's showing a similar result. Although many cross-culture studies on shyness has been conducted, there are still some questions unsolved in this field. For example, measurement issues. I don't know how many of you know what is measurement invariance. So when we compare the group differences, especially when we compare the cultural differences, for example, in China, psychology in China start very late until like after 1960. So the Chinese researcher, what they did is they just grabbed the Western created questionnaires, translated into Chinese, and then use it. So they assume that people in China, they respond the same questionnaire in the same way as the people from Europe or from North America. However, this is not always true, right? So people from different places, even different age, they may respond to the same questionnaire in a different way. They have different understanding. So that is the measurement invariance means here, that before we compare any group differences or even time differences, we should make sure people from different groups, they understanding the same questionnaire in the same way. Okay. So, but however, the cross-cultural studies, I show you the result here, none of the study did the measurement invariance. So they just compare the mean level differences. The second issues in this field is specificity. Shyness, sociability, and social anxiety, they are related constructs. So those constructs are close related, but they're different. How about, so whether the cultural differences also influence the relation between, for example, shyness and social anxiety, we don't know. So we want to test the specific of the shyness and related construct, whether they're different or same in different cultures. Lastly is the heterogeneity. So the third issue here is that there are different types of shyness. I still remember I got a defense when I was doing my PhD defense, I got a question. One of the reviewer asked me, there are so many different types of shyness: anxious shyness, regulated shyness, positive shyness, negative shyness, conflict shyness, so on and so forth. So why there are so many different types of shyness? How will you define them? I will say, like, as a researcher, we always want to find some different from previous findings, right? We always want to catch a small difference, some small gap. So they always create a new name for example, shyness. They are overlapped, but they're a little bit different. So, for example, one day, if I'm famous and become famous, I will create a new shine called Sonia shyness, right? It's that is how we there's so many different shyness. We try hard to create some new types of shyness, and it's hard to differentiate each of them. So in my study, I try to differentiate two types of shyness, which originally found in Asian cultures, and let's see whether it also can be identified in Western cultures. The other heterogeneity can be shown in the behavioral differences. So if you still remember from the videos, the children behave differently when they feel shy. Some people are, frozen there, but some people they have more fidgeting behaviors, right? They're different, and those differences can also due to the expectation from the society, the social norms. So I will answer the three questions in my study. So I will show you 4 related studies to answer the 3 main questions or 3 unsolved issues in this field. So let's see the first study. I focused on testing the measurement issues. So in the first study, I studied my PhD during the COVID. Before I was doing my PhD, I have a big picture. I want to do everything. I want to do EEG. I want to do like observational study, everything, survey study. But COVID is coming. And I can only stay in my small room, very small room with a window and doing online study. So what I can do is I use some archival data to test the measurement invariance. Again, measurement invariance is very important. And in the 2023, there's a paper published in the high, impact factors journal in psychological method. They show us why the measurement invariance is important. So what they find is that, first of all, what is measurement invariance? Measurement invariance testing determines whether the latent constructs are measuring equivalence across groups or times, which is essential and for meaningful comparisons. But they find that only 4% of the about 1,000 comparisons underwent the MI testing, and the results were poorly reported. Also, only 26% of the 174 newly which they performed the MI test reached sufficient invariance, with the MI failing about 58% of the test. So if you look at those numbers here, that first of all, MI tests are really conducted and poorly reported in psychology studies. So the result, what you see from the papers showing that, okay, Eastern people have higher level of what than the Western people. If they didn't do the MI, which means the result it's probably biased, right? And the report differences between the groups may not attribute to the group differences, probably due to the understanding differently about the questionnaire. So again, it's very important to do the MI. So in this study, I tested the MI for a widely used shyness skills. So again, shyness study is conducted in China since after 1980, and at the very beginning, what they did is compare the mid-level differences, and they always showing that Chinese have higher level of shyness than the North American or Europe, but they never test whether they measure the same construct. Okay, so what I did here, the first goal for the first study is I test the measurement invariance on the widely used shyness skills, shake and buzz shyness skills between Chinese and Canadian young adults. Again, I use archival data, so I will show you the sample size there and more information about the sample. The second goal is after, if I got a measurement invariance, if I can say, okay, they respond to the questionnaire in the same way, then I can move the next step. I can compare the mean level differences without bias, right? So the samples here. So we used undergrad students, which is easiest to reach participants from 17 to 22 years old. And we got 816 Chinese students and 995 Canadian children. 47.2 of the Chinese participants are male, and 30.8% of the Canadian participants are male. We use the chicken buzz shyness skills, which is widely used, and previous results showing, Chinese shyness higher than Canadian shyness. They also use this questionnaire. And so here's the examples of the shyness questions. For example, I find it's hard to talk to strangers, or when we in a group of people, I have trouble thinking of the right things to talk about. So there are 5 items for the skills. We use the multi-group complementary factor analysis, MGCFA, and also alignment method, which give some flexibility for MGCFA. I won't talk too much about stats. It's complex. I can spend the whole hour to discuss how to do it. But anyway, we use 2 different measures to test it. And the result, you are interested in the result, right? The result is great. We find a measurement invariance, and I feel released when I got the result, which means I can achieve my second goal. I got the measurement invariance, which means that the widely used shyness skills, at least in this sample, works. So people from China and Canada, they respond to the same questionnaire in the same way. Even the languages are different, but they understanding in the same way. No difference in how the participants from the 2 countries interpret the questionnaire. So now let's see the second goal, the mean level differences. Consistent with the previous findings, we find the same result. So the x-axis refers to different groups. So this is entire sample, entire Chinese and entire Canadian, and Chinese male, Canadian male, Chinese female, Canadian female. For all 3 groups, we find significant difference, like Chinese participants showing higher level of shyness than the Canadian participants, which is good, right? Consistent with previous findings. And this is my first published paper in APA journal, which I was excited. Now I want to show you another study. Let me give you the general discussion about the first study. So first of all, we confirm that the shyness skills, which is comparable skills, and we compare the differences, and we find that Chinese participants showing higher level of shyness than the Canadian, which is good. Then we want to solve the second issue about sociability, which is kind of opposite of the shyness, but it's not exactly in the different, 2 opposite directions. Oh, this is not in press anymore. I published in 2024. So 2 years later, and I got 13 times rejection for this paper. You will know the reason after I show you the result, okay? So let's see. So sociability, what is sociability? Sociability is the tendency to associate with others and be in their presence as opposed to being alone. And sociability are more influenced by the culture, actually, compared to shyness. Shyness is more temper-based, right? You have a temperament, you have different temperament. But sociability can influence a lot by the social expectations, right? So the sociability, the conceptually and empirical they all find the sociability are different from shyness, not exactly opposite. Sociability are reflected in cultural beliefs, right? From these 2 pictures, you notice that. For example, in the Western and other individualism cultures, individual feelings and emotions are strongly valued. So people are engaged into social interactions for fun or rewarding positive feedbacks. However, in Eastern cultures or collective cultures, individual feeling and emotion are not that, not that important. So what your role is, you need to keep the social harmony. You come to the party because you want to keep cohesive. You show you are part of the group. So that's the reason. And those social contact or social expectation influence how people express or respond in different situations, right? And from the previous findings, it's consistently showing that Asian population have lower level of sociability compared to the Western population. Again, how they tested? They used Westernized created questionnaire, translated into different Asian language and tested. But the main point is the people understanding sociability is different, right? We have different understanding of sociability. So we test the same thing. We test the measurement invariance using the same skill, but it's about sociability items. And we are thinking, okay, if we got the measurement invariance, we test the mean level differences. Okay. Same participants, different questionnaires. So for example, for sociability, the example questionnaires, I like to be with people, or I welcome the opportunity to mix socially with people, and so on and so forth. 5 items. We use the same statistics analyst. Can you guess or imagine the result? You're right. We didn't get the measurement invariance. So which means the participant from the two groups, they understand the questionnaire differently. Okay? Because of this, we couldn't do the mean level differences, as I said, right? But for exploratory, purpose, we still try it, consistent with previous findings. Chinese participants showing lower level of sociability than the Western participant, the Canadian participants. Again, the result is not meaningful. It's biased because people understand the questionnaire differently. So that is one of the reasons I think we got 13 times reject, because it's very challenged their previous findings. If they use the same questionnaire and they didn't get measurement invariance, their mean level differences are not informally, right? It's not that true. So from this study, we know the sociability are at least these skills may not be comparable skills in these samples. And the comparison of sociability across cultures may be biased and informative. Most important thing is because sociability might be influenced more by the cultural beliefs and social situations compared to shyness. Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. I love my paper and I try a lot. So after 13 times, I finally it's been accepted. I don't feel happy anymore. I feel like release. Finally, it's done. I don't have to, revise it. It took I finished the 2 papers at the same time and takes another 2 years to publish. So this is another good story to tell you how hard in this journey, right? So the next question, so almost after the COVID, finally I can do some study. I collect some new data. So what I did during the COVID, I noticed that some researchers in China, they propose some new subtypes of shyness. Okay, some new subtypes, another subtypes. There are 2 different subtypes they think. So I want to test whether the 2 different subtypes of the new shyness that proposed in the Eastern cultures, first of all, whether it can also be identified in the Western cultures. And second is, if they can be identified in both cultures, whether the relations between, for example, shyness and sociability, we know they're positive correlated, right? Whether the correlation are the same in the 2 different cultures. So I tested the heterogeneity of the shyness. So in the study 3, I combined the 3 things together: measurement invariance, specificity of shyness, social anxiety, and heterogeneity. So there are 2 different types of shyness they proposed. they find in Chinese cultures. One, they call this anxious shyness, which is very similar as the shyness I just mentioned in the first study. Remember, it's an anxious reaction to stressful novel situation or social evaluation. So what is regulated shyness? Regulated shyness is a quiet, passive, and non-assertive behavior to avoid social attention and to display modesty and maintain social harmony. It's hard to understand if you're not from Asian cultures, but I will give you examples. So in Western cultures, people are always be happy to give praise or compliment. So for example, I say, Nick, you look good today. How will you respond in a Canadian way?
Oh, thank you.
Right? It's automatically we will say thank you very much. However, if we gave the same praise or compliment to a person from Asian culture, I'm from Asian culture, if I
You're too kind.
you're too kind, or right, or no, I'm not.
Yeah.
Even though I stay in Canada for more than 10 years, I know I will say thank you very much. But in my heart, I say no, I'm not that good. I'm not clever. I'm not, I always say no to myself. It could be due to the self-esteem or confidence, but it can also due to how we learn what we should behave. So for the regulated shyness, they also show you some withdrawal behavior. Like I'm not, no, I'm not, or some withdrawal behaviors, not that confidence or assertiveness. But in our motivation, if you really ask me, you don't think you are that good, I won't say no, right? I still feel like I'm good. So the motivation are different. It's just the regulated shyness is just a behavior, right? It's intrinsic, like we learn from all my life that you should behave like this. It's not, doesn't mean like I really shy. I'm not a shy person, not girl, I'm female, but behaviorally, if you ask someone else who don't know me very well, they probably say Sonia is shy because I behave more modest or regulated. So in this study 3, study 3A, we want to test the relation between first of all, we want to test whether the regulated shyness and anxious shyness, which originally found in Chinese culture, can also be identified in Canadian culture. And the second is, if they are, whether the cultural context influence the relation between the shyness and social anxiety, 2 different types of shyness and social anxiety. So in this study, we recruit the children. So this time not adults, which children is harder to recruit it, from 3 to 5 years old from China and Canada. We got 182 Chinese participants in 2 months, and we got 200 Canadian participants in about 1 year. 1.5 year, I would say. Because they're too young to do the self-report. So we asked their parents to the parents report. And in the study, we asked the parents to answer the 10-item Chinese shyness skills, which from the researcher who proposed there are 2 different types of shyness in China. Here's the example questions. So anxious shyness, I know you quite familiarized with, let's say the regulated shyness. So for example, my child behave modestly, or my child avoid conflict with peers. You probably think they're not really too shy, right? They're behaviorally similar, but the motivation or the internal feelings are different. And we use the 5-item social anxiety skills to test their social anxiety level. So again, first thing, we need to do the measurement invariance. And the good answer is for the Chinese shyness skills, we find the measurement invariance. And also, we also find the social anxiety skills, or we got the measurement invariance, is equivalence as well. After we got the 2 measurement invariance, then we can compare the relation differences. Okay. So now let's say, right. So because we got the measurement invariance, we can also conclude that both anxious shyness and regulated shyness, which originally found in China, they also find in Canada. Probably in Canada, the regulated shyness doesn't mean shy. It can mean modesty, but I mean, at least the two factors also showing here. Okay. So we can move to our second goal, whether the cultural context influence the relation between shyness and social anxiety. So let's see the result. The x-axis refers to different levels of anxious, low level of anxious, high level of anxious, social anxiety level. So, you know, if you ask someone the relations between shyness and social anxiety, positive relation, right? So results showing the same. Countries didn't moderate the relation, which means for both countries, higher level of anxious shyness showing higher level of social anxiety. No significant difference. But let's say the regulated shyness. Any assumption of the result? Same relations for the Chinese?
No, it's inversable. Chinese.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's see. So the dot line represents Canadian participants. The solid line represents the Chinese participants. So what do you see? So first of all, there's a moderation. So the country moderate the relation, which means that in the Chinese participants, higher level of regulated shyness doesn't influence their social anxiety. But for the Canadian participant, still higher level of regulated shyness have higher level of social anxiety. Is that interesting? So regulated shyness was significantly and positively related to social anxiety only in Canadian children, but not in Chinese children. So what's the result tell us? Why they have different results when we are thinking about regulated shyness? That is the culture influence it. So when we think about regulated shyness in China, again, it's our learning process. We learn, we have to behave like regulated shy. We are not shy, we are regulated shy. So social anxiety is about when you are evaluated by others or when you interact with others, you feel anxious. But there's nothing about regulated shy. It's just regulated shy is just how we behave. Right? Even for me, for example, I have high regulated shy, I don't feel social anxiety. So they're not related in China. However, in Canadian cultures, they don't have the social norms like that modesty or the regulated shy. So in the culture, people with higher level of regulated shy, they showing very similar behaviors as the anxious shy. So they probably have a similar result with the relation between shyness and social anxiety. Does it make sense? Yes. So that's a great findings. Because of these findings, we move forward. We want to test, okay, so except for the social anxiety, how about other internalizing and externalizing problems? So we are testing depression and physical aggression. So in the study 3B, we repeat the study. We repeat testing whether the two types of shyness identified in China can also be identified in Canada. We use different samples this time. And we also want to test whether the culture influenced the relation between the subtypes of shyness and depression and physical aggression. So this time we recruit 8 to 10 years old participants, 145 from China, 149 from Canada, and we have very balanced samples this time. We use the same shyness skills, but different depression and aggressive behavioral questionnaires. So because they're old enough to do the self-report, so some of them are self-report, some of them are peer report. So for the Chinese shyness skills, we still use the peer report, but depression, inventory, and aggressive behavior, we use their self-report. Again, the result was great, how we consistently find that there's a measurement invariance of the Chinese shyness skills, which is a good skills. We still find the two factors, regulated and anxious, in both countries. We also got the depression and aggressive behaviors measurement invariance, which means we can use that for further analyze. So let's see what happened if we say the difference between the relations of different types of shyness and internalizing and externalizing problems. So let's see the first two pictures. So on the left side is anxious shyness and depression. Right side is anxious shyness and physical aggression. So the solid line again is Chinese participants, the dotted line is Canadian participants. So what you can see here, the interaction was non-significant, which means the country didn't moderate the relations. So in both countries, probably you say how probably you ask me why there's a significant beta for Chinese participants, but it's still non-significant. It's statistically non-significant moderation. So even though the Chinese participants showing significant positive correlation, but it's statistically they're not different compared to the Canadian participants. So still no difference for anxious shyness and depression or physical aggression. Same in both countries. Similar results showing again, right? When we look at regulated shyness with depression, regulated shyness with physical aggression. Oh, this time, sorry, I changed this. So this time Chinese is the dotted line and Canadian is the solid line. But you still can notice that in Chinese groups, there's no relations between regulated shyness and depression, regulated shyness and physical aggression. But for Canadian, it's negative, significantly negative correlation or relations, right? So those studies again repeat our previous findings that regulated shyness are more socially influenced, but anxious shyness are more temporal based shyness. So which means that for regulated shyness, you are influenced more by the culture, but anxious shyness more by your trait, your personality. Okay. So for discussion, for understanding the findings, again, in the Chinese cultures, regulated shyness is shaped by the cultural expectations, but internal emotion and internally driven behavior, like aggressive behavior, may not align with those, the traits like regulated shyness. And in Canada, the personal goals achieved is higher valued, and Canadian children with low regulated shy and struggle with upset personal goals, they probably lead some negative feelings, depression, or transforming to frustration and aggressive behavior. And Canadian children with high regulated shy, they tend to avoid conflict, and they probably get more peer supportive than they have less depression or less physical aggression. So again, the take-home point for the second part of the third study is, again, we find the Chinese shyness skills, which is a good skill to test two different types of shyness in both Chinese and Canadian children and early adolescents and young adults. And the cultural influence are particularly important with respect for the regulated forms of shyness. Like simply say, anxious shyness is more temporal-based, regulated shyness is more social culture-based. So last study, we want to test the behavioral differences, behavioral expression of shyness. So in this study, we used observational task. It's also a hard study. I don't think I will do too many observational studies anymore because you spend a lot of time in coding, right? It's Chinese. Yeah. We spend a lot of time coding, and in both Chinese and Canadian, we have so many research assistants, and result is excited, but still, I will show you the result later, and I will discuss the result. But anyway, the goal is we want to test whether there's shyness related behaviors response differently in the two different cultures. So we test the 5 related behaviors to shyness. Fidgeting, which means like if you're shy or anxious, you probably have more fidgeting behaviors. Avoidance behavior, like you avoid to talk to the person like face to face. Gaze aversion, similarly, like you lack of the gay connection or gay contact to the person you are talking to. Time spent speaking, how long you speak. If you're nervous, you speak less. And smelling, like if you feel calm, you probably smell more, right? So there are 5 related behaviors to shyness. So in this study, we recruit the children 3 to 5 years old. This time we have less Chinese participants because I made a mistake. Originally, I asked them to have a mirror in front of the, so in this study, we asked the presentation task. We asked the kids to give us a presentation, which means there's a camera in front of the kids. And the researcher, so here's the camera, researcher stand here. The kids stand there. So what they need to do is we ask them to face the camera to give us a talk about their last birthday. So how did you celebrate your last birthday? So for the Chinese participant, originally I told them you should have a mirror in front of so besides the camera, so they can also see themselves. And we noticed that for Canadian participants, they didn't have the mirror. So it's not comparable. So I sent them another email, said no mirror again. But time is limited, so they can only give me 74 in 2 weeks, but they're still quick. I appreciate that. So we used the 74 participants versus 189 Canadian participants.
Did you say in 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
74 observed and analyzed?
No, not analyzed. Just no.
Other planets or other country?
No, they collect. Well, if you ask to analyze, they're quick. They have.
Yeah, no, I expect.
They have 11 coders.
Yeah.
I told them, please just 2 coders because we don't want too many coders that there are difference with each other. But they said no. We have so many students interested in the study, so they want to join. So finally, we have 11 participants, 11 coders, and they finished coding very quick. I forgot the time, but it's very quick. Yeah, that's the presentation task. Let me show you the videos. And you can see her hands is fidgeting, right? And she's trying to avoid eye contact. And she's even moved away from the camera and the researcher. I can tell she's saying, please let me go, right? Please stop it. But she cannot. She's for conformity, like she know I have to stand here because the teacher asked me to stand here to give the talk, so I cannot run. But in Canada, when I do the same study, some Canadian child just ran out, just open the door and leave. Well, I was surprised. Like I told you to give us the talk while you're leaving, but it's in Canada, right? They have the freedom to do it. I feel sorry for the girl, but it's quite common, and we noticed many Chinese children there look like this. They are hesitate to give the talk until the researcher remind them. Try to think about did you have fun? How did you celebrate your birthday? Did you eat a cake? So after a few hints, they start to say something. So let's see the result here. We compare it. We cannot do the measurement invariance because it's not about measurements. So to be honest, I cannot say it's not biased because we still use coders to coding the behavior, but we try our best to do same in the 2 countries, same behaviors. So for the fidgeting, you can see that Canadian showing higher level of fidgeting behaviors. That because in some situations, shy or anxious, they lead people to froze there, like some animals. If they feel anxious or then dangerous, they frozen there. They're no moving. And the ones we didn't find significant difference. For gaze aversion, Chinese children showing more gaze aversion compared to Canadian participants. They speak less, Chinese speak less than Canadian, and they smell less. They feel nervous. So generally speaking, the Chinese and Canadian preschool children showing significant difference in the shyness related behavior. Okay, so which means shy children, like Chinese children showing more shyness related behavior compared to Canadian participants. But you remember I said it's very hard to do the observational study. We spend a lot of time coding to get equivalence across the groups. When we compare their coding, their data to the shyness survey data, we didn't find correlation even. So which means how they report, how their parents report their shy is not exactly the same as how they behave. So this is the other story showing you that, survey data, especially from others, is not exact how you behave or how you believe. So generally speaking, we've answered the three main questions about measurement issues, specifically about related constructs of shyness and some different types of shyness across cultures. So what I'm doing right now is I already collect the data, finished data collection. So this time I collect data in both China and Canada, combined with, I said I don't want to do observation, but I do it again. I add another task. So we have observational study, we have survey task, and we also use the ECG like to test their heart rate variability. So more physiological variables. I haven't analyzed too much about the data, but I guess it will be hopefully it will give me more rich information about the differences across cultures. And also, finally, I got the ethics to do the indigenous study. So we will collaborate with the non-profit organization to collect some indigenous children's their data to expand the cultural differences on shyness and related construct. Okay, so here's the book. I highly recommend. The book I recently read. It's about culture map. So it's showing differences in how when you deal with other people from other countries, how will you do it? It's a great book. So thank you very much. I have any questions? Stop it. Yeah, no. Keep it open.
Thank you, Sonia, for that fantastic presentation. We have a few minutes for questions. If anybody has some questions, you can raise your hand up and.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you. It was very interesting. I have one question. Yeah, sure. You can tell me when to stop.
It's hard to say.
The first one is that did you measure the inter-rater reliability in your study?
Yes. For the code, do you mean the coding? Yes, we did. We found a good iterator reliability.
Between those 11 or also between
Within the country.
culture?
Within the country. Within the country. Yeah.
And it means that for the Chinese people were coding, and
Yeah.
for the Canadians.
Yes. So I trained both of them
The same,
the same way.
which is still can be culturally.
Yeah. So it's a big limitation. So I didn't publish the paper in a high journal, like high impact journal.
But it was very interesting. I also couldn't detect by my eyes.
Yeah.
The difference between the means of female, male, and general population in the first and second publications, which was very interesting for me. I'm not sure my eyes cannot detect or it's not there at all.
The first study you said?
And one of the slides is 26, slide 20. There were two of them that you compared means. Am I not detecting it?
They are
Or is it
very-
exactly the same.
Yes, male and female, that we didn't find significant difference, and that you're right. It's the mean level. It's not a fake picture. It's a real picture. It's been from.
Yeah, I was actually wondering, is it?
I know. I know. When I finally finished the picture, I feel like why they're very similar. But if you look at the paper, the mean score is almost the same. But it's different, but it's very similar. Yeah. Question.
You can ask others question and then I can.
Okay. Any other questions?
And I have questions too, but I wanna engage or encourage the.
You already hear almost all the.
But I have new questions. I'm reading new stuff, so I'm like, yeah. No, it's a really, it's such a cool set of study, and also I'm really, we often have discussion in the department, you know, already psychology is the business of measuring the unmeasurable to start with. Shyness exists as a latent construct. Personality, stress, like all of our constructs. So I really like, it's always bringing a lot of humility to say, we measure in the survey, we have a tendency to really assume that what we're measuring is actually what's happening. And then we really need to be reminded, like with your studies, that there's a lot of variation and lots that comes from the method and lot that comes from the history of the practice. So I just want to those, and also if everybody here is like reading research, reading papers, and you're just bump into like, where is the measurement and variance? I think that should be something now you could spot on and maybe ask. So I didn't say like, no, I don't say that, but I think it's a really important measure. And I have done studies and, you know, I went back to this. So measurement and variance, I love this, but I feel like it's a can of worm we open, which is really, the construct is very interesting because is the equivalent between the group you're comparing. In the construct, you're measuring the same. So we have the comeback alpha, which talk about internal constraints. That's consistent within the survey.
Right.
This is between group.
Right.
So my question to you, and I think I asked you that before, is like, first, did you repeat your measurement and variance every time you did
Every time.
with the same survey?
So yes, remember the study.
The shyness, for
The
instance,
Chinese,
Yeah.
we repeat and it's working
it's
well.
always across the
No,
study
I-
population.
I only did a few times, but now I already got remember the biological study
Yes.
also works.
Yes. So you get consistency in your
Consistency.
measurement and variance.
Yeah, for this one.
For the shyness. But my second question, which is again, like, you know, we have men and women, we have rural and urban.
Yes.
We have, so your recommendation, would it be whenever you do a group difference, irrespective the nature of the differences, but your assumption is like, I'm looking at group, you should run a measurement and variance.
Yes.
So even if it's really talking about
Yes.
people who have a certain personality trait versus people who have like, as would you say it should be a systematic practice of group difference study?
I would say to robust your statistic,
Yeah.
your comparison. Measurement variance is mandatory.
Yeah.
Even time differences, if you have longitudinal.
Yeah, within the same
With-
population.
Yes, it's the same, it's in the same sample, like different time, they probably respond to the same questionnaire in a different way.
Different.
And if it's different, basically you need to use mixed method cluster based on that.
You based that, my second question was like, so when it's different, and maybe I actually, and maybe I'm very interested to know, because the idea of the measurement and variance is to evaluate if the construct is the same
Right.
across two groups. So I know you didn't want to go into detail, but can you tell us a bit, like, how do you go, because you're not going there, it's like, what's shy for you? You know, it's like,
Yeah.
it's a statistical inference that you're making.
Right, so it's a statistical way. So I remember I talked two different ways. Entry-set way, it's they constrain each level. So for very broad, whether, for example, shy, they have only one factor in both countries. The factor, whether they're same. For example, in China, probably they have two different factors within the 5 items. But Canada only have one factor. They're not equivalent. So after we got the factor level equivalent, then we move to the factor loading. So each items, whether the factor loading are similar across two groups. Finally, we got the scalar, which is for each individual items, their levels are the same, but it's very hard to gather
Yeah.
because the mean level are always different, right? So in that case, we introduce alignment. So alignment, they give some flexibility. They compare the vector loading and the items and see like how many items. They gave me some flexibility, say, okay, this item, for example, remember sociability. Sociability is only the items 3 are different across the groups. So let me show you.
it's not about variability between the responses in each item in two
It's
cultures?
the way, it's like a factor confirmatory analysis almost that you would do to validate the survey.
Yes.
Like you're kind of doing a bit of the same analysis, like whether there's the same number of factor between each of the group.
But I still think that even if we compare the factor loading, it's good to compare variability within factor, like within.
I think it's the alignment, that's not the alignment.
The entry set way they compare the factor loading, they compare both the significant or non-significant of the one each items to the factors. And it's also compare the residuals and variance in them.
Yeah.
So for example, for the sociability, only the third items is not equivalent across the group.
Mm.
But the total result showing is not significant, like not equivalent.
Yeah.
So using alignment, we know which item makes the most differences. So we can explain, okay, this items probably have cultural differences.
Oh, I have one last question, then I'm done. So, you make a suggestion to what it could be the driving cultural differences. You talk about goal-oriented. So why, for instance, in the regulated shyness and the
Anxious shyness.
anxious shyness in Canadian population, they both correlate with a lot of like psychophysiological outcome, while the regulated doesn't in the Chinese. So to me, I feel and I wonder if you could test that, and if you look, because you test pretty big samples, so you probably have inter-individual variability within your group. And I wonder if you ever consider doing like a cluster analysis across your
Great question. I try to, but the sample is sometimes not that enough, like 145, 149 is not that enough. I really want to do it.
And by that I say again, like if you have a goal-oriented motive, or if you have, because again, goal-oriented, because a lot of like the difference that we talk between communal and agentic, that's often, it's a gender construct too,
Right.
that you see also replicated between gender and across gender within Canada as well, most likely as within China. So I'm just wondering if you cannot find actually a variable that explain also variance, but within the two cultures put together.
Yeah, possibly.
I feel like one of them can be intentional behavior rather than non-intentional, like the politeness of. Regulated
Yeah.
politeness. There are a lot of like intentional behavior in it that
Yeah.
culture,
Interesting.
they decide to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not that they feel obligated, but they want to.
Exactly, it's motivation.
Yeah. I have two quick.
I feel like it's me and Sarah. But maybe,
Give it to.
Yeah.
Is there any other question?
Yeah, the question.
Yes.
I'm just wondering if you looked at the differences like within the jurisdictions. So like, would you be able to compare with your data, anything from provinces in Canada, provinces in China,
Oh,
and if any regional.
I will tell you. Oh, yes. You read me. I want to do it because I still collaborate with my previous supervisor. I want to collect some data in Frenchburg, which is a quite small place. But in China, they already did that. They compare rural and urban place, and they find differences. So we want to repeat the study in Canada, say whether we will find a difference. And the other thing, I don't know the reason, but very interesting. I will tell you, like. In this room, you're lucky you got my newest news is that I compare the mean level differences. Only the anxious shyness. Remember before previous findings, they always say that Chinese participants showing higher level of shyness than Canadian or Western. But I used the 3 to 5 years old, 6 to 10 years old, 8 to 10 years old, 6 to 7 years old, 4 different samples. I used the Chinese shyness scale, anxious shyness. And I noticed that Canadians have higher level of shyness than Chinese participants. It's different than the previous findings, which I assume probably because before the comparison didn't separate regulated shyness and anxious shyness. Like in their study, in the comparison study by the previous Chinese researcher, when they compare Chinese and Canadian, they use observation and they only have one question: are you shy? So are you shy means the shy can combine all the types of shyness. But that result, I don't know, because it's a big challenge for all the previous findings. I need to find a strong evidence to support myself, but it's consistent. And the data I collected from 2021 to 2024 is showing consistent result. So it's yeah, I don't know, but that, I don't know if answer your questions, but
I think so. So it's something that you plan on doing.
Oh.
I'm just curious, so in your Canadian sample, was that, I know you did your PhD and McMaster, so was most of it kind of concentrated in Ontario?
yes, yes.
And then in China, do you know what, like, which?
Yes, the three different studies, most of them they collect in Shanghai, which is the big city there as well. But the recent data I collected in very small cities. But even in the small city, Canadian also showing higher level of shine than Chinese. I feel confused, like things change. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
One of your study, you suddenly started working on different age. Is that specific reason for that?
Oh, because we collect a lot of variables from 3 to 5, and also so I want to see whether 8 to 10 also.
Comparing the
Yes.
ages.
Yes.
And for the rejection reason for your paper too, was it because you were challenging the
I
research?
don't know. I assume it probably part of them, yes. But I really like that paper, and it's very hard to publish non-significant result in our field, and it's kind of non-significant result because it's no measurement there.
Could it be like a generational, like changing culture?
I guess that's you. Are you talking about shine differences?
Yeah, the different.
Yeah,
colors
I'm
you're finding
thinking.
now. Yeah.
But I still feel it's too, like, the changing is too different,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I can assume they're equal right now, but it's changing opposite.
Mhm.
It's very interesting. So if you have any ideas, please talk to me. Yeah, Jen.
So I'm wondering about social dominance orientation,
Mhm.
if that loads or relates in any way, shape, or form to regulated shyness.
Yeah.
So the question about like different areas of Canada specifically scoring potentially different or whatever. Yeah. So I'm not sure if anything's done like that. It's more of an implications kind of question. Yeah.
Good question. I don't, based on my knowledge, I don't think so. But
I'm also wondering if like,
about shine.
yeah,
Yeah.
but like shy specifically, if things kind of like have changed just with like the climate of what's happening in the world and stuff like
Could
that.
be.
So, yeah, so.
Could be. Yeah.
I don't know.
I will write it down.
Okay, you got that.
You already said it.
Because I was really interested in like, I like behavior, and I was very interested in like the fact that you didn't find, you say, in the Chinese, because I guess you tested in both the Canadian and the Chinese sample or population, and you did find an association between the behavior reported and the survey in
Yeah.
Canadian, but not in. And I was thinking about this and wondering about also because of the construct of shyness and how maybe kids behave in general in the present. So it might be a social desirability or a problem of reporting, but it could also well be that in the presence of their parents, which are the reporter, their actual behavior is different. So the notion of social regulation in the presence of a parent or in the absence of one or in presence of another authority figure, I think, yeah, so if they are different, that could also drive the measurements, the lack of correlation between self-reported measure
Right.
and,
That's a good point.
yeah.
But they're too young to the peer.
No,
report,
but
right?
so that's why, but even like in the way they even behave, that could be it. So that
Yes.
could be something testable if you test like in presence of their parents and not,
Right.
and how much the behavioral
A
varies.
lot of compounding variables. Yeah. I agree. Yes.
I recently read a paper where they said that like the Asian communities have become like more westernized, like in the past 10 years.
Uh-huh.
So this is like very dumb question, but I think like is it like that affect the results? Like Asian communities becoming more westernized and then their shyness just going away maybe. And maybe like if religion might play role as a motion tool.
Religion. If you say other cases, probably, but I mean, for Chinese participants, I don't think religion is the because most of people, we don't have religions there. But that can influence Canadian, for sure. If it's changing over time, it probably yes. Yeah, but that's a good point. I double checked it. I don't know the answer right now. Thank you.
No, I'm just thinking, I'm just thinking about the fact that that would be very interesting to see in each group what can be related to showing shyness or low shyness.
Yeah, there are so many different variables, and it's hard to pack everything in a. The reviewers always ask me, why did you didn't test this? Why not? I couldn't do it. Like, yeah, yeah.
Ask a quick one.
Yeah.
Yeah, study 3B. Could you show the
Yes.
again?
Study 3.
Study 3B. Is the one, yeah. this- So, okay, is that one? So Canadians with higher regulated shyness are less depressed?
Let's see first.
Oh, so it's, so that one in that case is actually positive outcome of the shyness.
Positive outcomes, but the thing is, I couldn't say regulated shy is shy in Canada. So probably regulated shyness means modesty.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's, do you know what I mean? Like regulated shy in China, it's shy because when they create the measures, they ask in their, like, how will you describe shy? And one of the word they use is modesty. So modest and like regulated shy, it's close to shy. But I don't know, like this is the, how I will test in the future is, what's the meaning of regulated shy in Canada?
Yeah, because if it's positively associated with social anxiety and kind of like, in that case, negatively associated with depression, and if you think about how modesty relates to this, I don't think modesty has the same profile of association.
Yes, that's the thing. So it's also one of the good questions. So it's kind of a positive result, but what's the meaning? Like even, right, what's the meaning? Yeah.
Yeah. Could you like your people, like, could you cluster them to see the people with high regulated shyness, like, are they the same people who score like low on depression and, sorry, that didn't work, so.
No, it's not, I can try.
No, I don't think it's gonna be useful.
But it's.
I killed my own, I was like, no.
So it says depression and anxiety goes to different
Different
directions.
Yes.
Yeah, because the high regulated shyness with Canadians, it is high social anxiety.
Yeah.
But low depression.
Depression.
But depression and anxiety usually are
Yeah.
correlated.
Exactly.
That's a really.
It's a really
Very
interesting,
yeah.
it's interesting findings as well.
I also kind of think in Canadian culture, if you're shy, you're kind of like shamed for it a little bit. So I wonder if that has something to do with that. It's very interesting to me that like the concept of regulated shyness, we almost don't even talk about people in a shy.
No.
You could be shy and it's a good thing, like, you know.
True, yes, but in China, that's positive. It's
Yeah,
normal.
Yeah.
At least you can be shy.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people, like I would prefer to stay home all the time.
Yeah, and for extend your question, I also remember I got a question from previous presentation is someone asked me, if my child is shy, what can I do? Like,
Yeah.
how can I treat them?
You want to fix
I mean, it's
something.
not a disorder. Yeah, the society has to change their expectations.
Like you
Not-
just buy them more books and they're happy.
Yeah, they can read by themselves, right? Yeah.
Speaking of positives, the high regulated shyness, and lower physical aggression.
Yes.
So maybe
That's a good
there's,
thing. right?
exactly. So, I mean, your point to modesty is huge because in, psychopathy
Yeah.
literature and whatnot,
Yeah.
higher modesty, you're not seeing individuals higher in psychopathy,
Mhm.
scoring higher in modesty.
Right.
too. So it definitely.
You can answer this or a good evidence.
Exactly, because like the linguistic, I guess, challenge of like what shyness happens to me in this culture versus another culture.
Mhm.
Because the definitions of the words, like, they don't necessarily overlap.
I love this explanation.
Definitions.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the physical aggression, that makes sense, but because depression and anxiety have high correlation, it's so hard to see one goes down and one goes up.
Yeah, but I mean, regulated shy, if it's high, then it's less conflict with others, right? And you have more social support and you have better social relationships. And you can use that as a way to, like, when you feel like depressed or you feel upset, you have a option. Like if you are more regulated shy or you have a good relationship with others, that can one
Why
of
is
the,
not helping you for having lessons?
sorry.
Why is not helping you to have
But-
lessons?
Again, this is not exact the same sample with what for anxiety one.
There be self-regulation. It could like actually the anxiety, you're like see it as a negative outcome, but it could be kind of a coping too.
The other thing we have to sort of take into account is we're looking at social anxiety.
Yes.
And depression and anxiety have large correlations with general anxiety.
Yeah, social anxiety is more social interactive. Depression is more internal feeling. So one is more about external, one is about internal. Even physical aggression is when you feel frustrated, you can have some aggressive behavior. So it's again, it's from your internal feelings. But social anxiety is more about how you interact with the external world.
But it's true that you did find kind of an interesting nexus by combining this construct, like you kind of, like it's a very interesting group.
Great questions.
Great presentation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. When you clap, in my mind, it's don't clap, don't clap.
You can't control me.
Thank you for being here. Like, if you have any other question or you want to discuss more, feel free to email me. I'm happy
Okay,
to.
how to measure measurement barriers. I think the next talk by Sonia is a workshop.
Okay, well done.
I'm really interested in that as well.
Okay, good.
Thanks everybody for coming. We're gonna have another colloquium probably sometime next term, so keep your eyes up for that. And if you have any questions, of course, you can feel free to reach out to Sonia after.
Thank you for being here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's.
I didn't think about it, we actually do.
But I used the M plus. I used the M plus to do that. That's fine. I can. Yeah.
Less talking. So expect your fast.
Okay. Okay.
Probably would fit the best with,
Yeah, if I say FA, yeah. How can I save the recording?
Oh, there's two.
oh. There's all clean up there. Where did you get that?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I thought you were gonna be able for it.
I missed it. So there are different like emails they find
I wonder if this even,
inside.
What's that?
it says this.
Couldn't share sound. Didn't record the sound.
I don't know yet. I won't know until. And I can't. Sonia will have to do it because I can't read her.
It's your head.
Now you're saying it, don't say that.
Yeah.
Sonia,
Yes.
can you, I don't know what this means if that didn't record the sound the whole time, so I'm gonna need you to go to that.
I did it in the recorder.
It's in- So you have to go to devices on your computer.
Yeah, which is what I need, and that's, that it keeps. I
But
just
it
have my
seems to-
work And everything else is taken care
It's perfect.
Did you see the download? Did it finish downloading?
Where is it?
Oh, I don't know. So you have to go to your files
Files?
and it might have downloaded that.
Files.
of. Yeah, well, and there was a lot of gray starting.
Coming from, it's download, right? It
Yeah.
should be in the download.
Yeah.
Does anything show there?
No.
So it might be in your Teams. You might just have to play around with it and look for it.
Okay.
I'll Google it and I really, try and take a listen of it. It
Okay.
looks like it's still recording.
I know. So I can live, right?
Yeah.